Hi, this is the evaluation of the orderIT trading system for December the 8th, 2020. We've had 8 trades for that day. 5 were identified as buys, 3 were identified as short sells. First trade on that day is CSIQ, Canadian Solar Incorporated. They tripped at 12:07 p.m. at a price of $39.78. It was actually tripped as a short sell. It actually closed the day at $39.96, up 0.63%, so it actually was up over the day activity from previous close. See if there's any point where it came down below that. 12:24. 1207, roughly around this area. So 39.73, 61, 7, 62. Okay, you can see that there is a point in this area where it was below the tripping price, which would have been a point to get out. But as you can see, it did recover. This would have been a stock you would have had to monitor. And again, probably the aspect of monitoring the stock as a stock that probably was showing that it was up a bit, and that would have given the indication that you would have had to monitor it if you decided to trade on it, because the stock was moving up in general, and you just have to catch it on a downward trend, which OBV is somewhat showing that, coming down, and then moving up. So it basically recovered in the afternoon. MACD showing the same thing, came down and then recovered in the afternoon. DI again down in the morning and up in the afternoon. You can see the jumping back and forth. Bollinger Band, same thing. So the indicators and the movement are showing all the same thing. It was coming down in the morning, but they recovered in the afternoon. But there was potential to get out if you had bought into the stock when it tripped. Next trade is BCRX. That's BioChrist Pharmaceuticals. They tripped at 12:25:09 p.m. at a price of $7.22. It was a buy trade. Closed today at 766, up 6.09%. You can see early morning is also rise, so this obviously is a definitely good stock as it increased across the board. The analysis is showing OBV, OBV right across the board moving upwards. MACD actually showing 2 periods where it was moving down, so it did show a strong increase late afternoon, but MACD not 100%. Again, the point where it tripped, it was moving up and moving up. So there were periods in the day where MACD was showing it had averages moving upwards, but again, it's a lot of negative too on MACD. DI is showing actually more positive than negative, and you can see its positive activity was very strong. So when it was positive, it was a very positive, strong movement. And Bollinger Band, we were just showing just a straight movement upwards. So in general, the indicator is somewhat showing positive movements, and the price is actually showing a constant increase. So it's a very good stock. Next trade is CNX. CNX Resources Corporation. It tripped at 12:38 p.m. at a price of $9.50. It was indicated as a buy trade. It actually closed at $9.20, and it was actually down 0.76%. So it actually closed below its tripping price. Let's see if there's any point where look at this. No. It tripped right at its peak and then just drop. So that stock is not looking to be a good possibility. Excuse me. OBV is actually moving sideways and then dropping. So OBV was not strong. was moving up a bit during obviously its tripping period, but not so much. MACD, same thing, and moving and tripped a little bit, moving upwards, and then dropped. DI, yeah, morning moving upwards. It was positive, I should say, in the morning, and then dropped in the afternoon. Bollinger Band showing the same thing. It was increasing in the morning and just flipped. So it just happened to be a consequence that it was showing strong movement in the morning and reversed in the afternoon. So it just happened to be one of those stocks that's ended up in a possible trade. So that technically is a negative outcome for that one if you traded on it. You would have had to wait for the next day, obviously, to potentially catch it moving upwards, which you could possibly still do because it was showing good movement for a good portion of the day. Next trade is HLT, Hilton Worldwide Holdings. It tripped at 1:25 p.m. at a price of 109.56. It closed, it was indicated as a short sell. It closed at 109.05, down 0.71%, and it closed at the end of the day below its tripping price, so that's a positive trade, 100%. Excuse me. Check the analysis of it. OBB showing sideways until afternoon and then just dropped. MACD actually was just showing it somewhat just dropping, and actually showing a heavy drop in the morning. It's interesting because OBB wasn't really showing any negative movement, but MACD certainly showing negative movement. DI, yeah, look, DI, it was positive early morning, or morning time, and then late morning it just went negative and just went negative all day long. At the end of the day it was making a bit of a recovery though. Bollinger Bands again, yeah, positive a little bit in the morning and just dropping all day after that, and again late afternoon it made a bit of recovery, but you still could have gotten a positive on that stock. Next trade is again, Cons Incorporated, CONN. It tripped at 1:50:19 p.m. at a price of 11.48. It was a buy trade. It closed at 11.62, but it was actually down 17.24%. So, interestingly enough, it was down quite heavily for the day, but it showed that you could have made a positive outcome. And look at that, it's moving sideways. So this stock actually opened up below previous close and just it dropped and just moved sideways. That's 100% sideways. So it's indicating that the stock, while it was down, it was basically at those points where it's not moving below its tripping point or its indication point, which is a technical analysis evaluation. That's a typical technical analysis. I don't want to say indicator. It's technically not a specific indicator, but there's a point where you can't go below. The stock won't go below that point. So basically, it's holding. It's holding at this point and not moving below it. And the end result is that we would have had a positive trade because the fact is it technically, excuse me again, it did move above its tripping point. Yeah, look at that. OBB moving sideways, and look, end of day, it shot up. MACD, not heavily, but for the most part, again, end of day showing it piked up, even though it did make a little bit of a negative recovery on that. DI though, look, DI showing all afternoon, and again, late afternoon was showing it actually had a fairly strong positive movement. So this stock actually was moving positive, even though it opened the day down. It basically was recovering. And the Bollinger Band showing you, yeah, same thing. It was basically recovering. The Bollinger Band showing an upward rise, even though its price was below its previous close by quite a bit. So a very interesting stock, but again, in the end, still a positive stock. Next trade is KDP, Keurig Dr. Pepper Incorporated. It tripped at 2:10:55 p.m. at a price of 30.24. It was actually a short sell. It closed the day at 30.17, down 1.76%, so that's a positive trade. Excuse me again. Check the indicators just to see what they look like. OBV, yeah, OBV showing somewhat till mid-afternoon it was dropping and then make a recovery OBV wise and dropping again. MACD showing somewhat the same sort of thing, even though it was showing it was actually showing the positive actually on a good portion of the day on MACD. And you can see the point that it caught was when it was moving down, and technically it was moving down early afternoon, middle afternoon, late afternoon, but the rest of the time it was moving, again, extensive periods were moving up, so interesting stock. And DI, this is one of the points where MACD and DI actually showing somewhat negative kind of representations of the activity. DI is showing very strongly negative movement for most of the day until that middle point, which is the middle of the day where it was starting to move up and make a recovery, and then shooting down again at the end of the day. So DI is showing that it was pretty much across the board negative. Bollinger Band showing somewhat a steady decline. Excuse me. So the stock was moving down somewhat consistently, even though MACD not 100% concrete. You know, MACD, you know, it's a tricky indicator, but next trade is MOMO, Momo Incorporated, tripped at 232.32. That's an interesting tripping period. Tripped at 13.87 as a buy trade. It closed at 13.87. It actually was down, so it actually closed. So you can see it's somewhat moving sideways. Let's see, 232 around this point. It came up to 1390, 1385. See it right after it's closed. It came up a bit, but we're not talking we're talking what, 10-15 minutes maybe, and not really a very long period of time to make recovery. But it looked like it was moving sideways after a trip. So we'll just check to see if the indicator showing anything concretely, and see if we can make a basic determination on that. OBV, yeah, showing that it was fairly much moving positive for the day. MACD, interestingly, showing the opposite of that. It's showing that it was actually a good portion day. MACD is showing that it was moving negative, average-wise. So the averages are showing that the indicator average is actually reversing and showing that it was moving downwards. So, very interesting. Very interesting. NDI, again, being the devil's advocate, is showing it basically reversal of MACD, showing that it was actually positive for most of the day. The good thing is they're both showing a recovery at the end of the day, so it was recovery at the end of the day. Bollinger Band basically showing it moving up. It was, you know, there was no drastic downward trends at all during the daytime, so there was no points where it was moving down heavily. It was basically moving upwards all day long. I can't say that this is a 100% positive because of the fact that it's just the period that where it was above the tripping price. It was a very short time frame, and I'll say that that's just maybe not enough time. It should be over half an hour at least above the positive, and it didn't look like it was above that for more than 10 or 15 minutes. And I'll say that no, not a positive, but again, a good possible. Next trade is mRNA, I think, yes, mRNA, Moderna Incorporated, tripped at 3:05 p.m. at 167.47. It was tripped as a buy trade. It closed at 169.86, up 6.48%. And look at it, it moved 3.44%. So we're talking from yesterday to early morning, it's up almost 10%. So obviously a good trade. This was a positive. So we'll leave it at that, a positive. And that's the last talk. So we had 6 out of 8 trades that were positive. So let's say 6 divided by 8. 75% go positive trades that could have been made on that day. And again, with one of them being a very strong possible, technically that could be 7 out of the 8 trades. So again, the day itself was a very good day. I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.